Start with prayers. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhuetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenbandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your time. So today we will continue our series of Canto 1 with chapter 18, Maharaj Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. So we are going to discuss this in 3 sections. So section 1 will have verses 1 to 9 and section 2 will have verses 10 to 23 and section 3 will have verses 24 onwards till the last verse 50. So let's start with this section 1, which is from verse 1 to 9. So in this section, we will discuss about Maharaj Parikshit's birth, as Sutta Goswami speaks about his birth, his consciousness, his death, and his dealings with Kali as well. So in the previous chapter, we saw the sages of Naimisharanya, they became struck with wonder after they heard about the wonderful administration of Maharaj Parikshit, especially in reference to his punishing the personality of Kali and making him completely unable to do any harm in his kingdom. So now in this chapter, Sutta Goswami becomes very eager to describe Maharaj Parikshit's wonderful birth and his death and to increase the interest of the sages of Naimisharanya. So in the first verse, Sutta Goswami mentions the birth of Parikshit Maharaj, and which we have also read in the chapter 12 of the first canto itself. So Maharaj Parikshit, while in the womb of his mother, was struck by the Brahmastra released by Ashwathama, and he was feeling the burning heat. But because he was a devotee of the Lord at once appeared himself within the womb, and the child could see that someone else had come to save him. And later on, he just kept on finding that person who had saved him. And hence his name was Parikshit, examiner. And Maharaj Parikshit is especially famous as one who is protected by Vishnu, Krishna himself. And when he was unduly cursed by Shringi, the Brahmana's son, which we will see how things unfolded and how he got cursed. At that time, when he got cursed that he is going to die in 7 days, that was the curse. And during that time, he could have easily invoked the mercy of the Lord to save him. But he did not want to because he was a pure devotee. A pure devotee never asks the Lord for any undue favor. And Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Maharaj Parikshit was Narayana Parayana, and he was neither afraid nor overwhelmed by the fear of death that was due to that curse. He was wrongfully cursed by an, as Prabhupada says, by an inexperienced son of a Brahmana who was under the influence of Kali. But Maharaj Parikshit took this to be sent by Narayan himself. He knew that Krishna had saved him when he was getting burned by the Brahmastra in the womb of his mother. And if he were to be killed by the curse now, it would also take place by the will of the Lord. Rakhe Krishna mare Krishna rakhe ke. If Krishna kills you, nobody can protect you. And if Krishna protects you, nobody can kill you. So the devotee never goes against the will of the Lord. Anything sent by God is a blessing for the devotee. And such a self-surrendered devotee like Maharaj Parikshit is called Narayana Parayana. So then he gave up all his material possessions and attachments. He went on to the bank of the Ganges. He gave himself up as the most humble disciple to Shukdev Goswami. And finally, he faced death due to the curse of the Brahmana boy. So now Sutta Goswami briefly mentions about the birth and the death of Parikshit Maharaj. And now he mentions that how his dealings were with the personality of Kali. So now, as we already know, the personality of Kali had entered the jurisdiction of the planet Earth long ago. And he was looking for an opportunity to spread his influence all over the world. But he could not do so completely, to his complete satisfaction, due to the presence of Parikshit Maharaj. And even though Parikshit Maharaj had allotted him few places, as we discussed in the previous chapter, but at the same time, he gave no chance for the citizens to be swayed away by this Kali. So initially, the personality of Kali, he could not enter the earth because Krishna was here. And then later on, because of the good governance of Maharaj Parikshit, he again could not enter. So Krishna and his holy names, his qualities, his glorifications are identical. So what Maharaj Parikshit did, he made sure that this holy name of the Lord is spread in his kingdom. And that was the technique that he used, that there was no chance at all for the personality of Kali to enter. And then Sutta Goswami, he mentions that knowing the characteristics of Kali, Maharaj Parikshit also saw the good qualities in this age. He acknowledged that the age of Kali is not so bad after all. There are special benedictions in this age of Kali. And some of them are like in other ages, simply by thinking of doing something bad, simply by thinking of, say, hitting someone, killing someone, or just cursing someone, just in the thoughts, the negative credits were achieved immediately. The impious credit would just got into your account. And one has to perform good actions in order to achieve the pious credit. Whereas in Kali Yuga, there is a special discount. No matter how bad thoughts we get, no matter how much we want to curse someone, how much hatred we have, or how much revenge we want, so many things, so many thoughts we get, we do not get any impious credits. It is forgiven, 100% off. Enjoy. One has to actually perform bad things to achieve the negative credits. Whereas simply by thinking of doing good acts in this age, just by thinking that this devotee is serving so nice, I wish I could help him, I wish I could read more. I wish I could do more charity. Just by thinking of doing good acts, in this age, we get the pious credits. Of course, that doesn't mean that we think of doing good acts and go back to sleep. We should definitely try to do them as well. And speaking of benediction in this age, we read in Bhagavatam only that Kaler dosha nidhe rajan asti eko mahaguna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. At the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that even though all nefarious activities of the personality of Kali are present, even though Kali Yuga, everything is full of faulty things, there is a great advantage in this age. One can attain salvation simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. And in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also said that just by the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord becomes at once arrested within one's heart. The Lord Krishna, he gets arrested at once just by the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. So now Sutta Goswami, speaking of all this, now he stops his narrations about about Lord Krishna in connection with Maharaj Parikshit. And now the sages, now they start speaking. And this brings us to the section 2, which is from verses 10 to 23. And in these verses, we will see that the eagerness of the sages to hear more about Krishna, to hear more glorification, more pastimes of the Lord, and how they emphasize and mention the power of association with the pure devotee. And then further, Sutta Goswami, he takes this humble position and he glorifies Krishna, who is unlimited, and he just tries to speak with his whatever realization he has. So earlier, the sages of Naimisharanya, all of them, they were doing fire sacrifice. And they were practically suffering from the smoke of that fire, the sacrificial fire. And they were even doubtful also about the result. But when they started hearing from a self-realized soul like Sutta Goswami, they were fully satisfied. They were tasting the nectar immediately through the process of Shravanam, through hearing, and realized it was more effective than the yajna. And they started blessing Sutta Goswami. They said, "Oh, great Sutta Goswami, may you live many years. May you have eternal fame. For you are speaking so nicely about Krishna, about his activities. This is just like nectar for mortal beings like us." And then they were comparing the fire sacrifice to the Bhagavad Katha, to the glorifications of the Lord. And they realized that the sacrificial fire that they kindled, it was certainly full of smoke, doubts, because there were so many flaws. One of the flaws is that in this age of Kali, there is an acute shortage, acute scarcity of expert Brahmins who can carry out such sacrifices successfully. Any discrepancy or any mispronunciation of a mantra, it will spoil the whole show. And also the result of such performances are also very uncertain. So the sages realized how great the narrations of the glories of the Lord are. And one can experience the nectar immediately. And then they glorify that how valuable is the association of Sutta Goswami. So they say that the value of a moment's association with the devotees of the Lord, it cannot be compared to going to heavens or getting liberation from the matter. What to even speak of material prosperity, which is meant for this material body, which is ultimately going to die, which is just temporary and full of miseries in this world. So the sages mentioned about the value of moments association, that it can never be compared to heaven, liberation, or material prosperity is not even close. And we also know that sadhu sangha, sarva shastra kohe, lava matra sadhu sange, sarva siddhi hoye. The verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association with a pure devotee, one can attain all success. And speaking of the value of association, there is this story about the Ambrish Maharaj and his brother. We all know how great devotee, how amazing Raja Rishi Ambrish Maharaj is. And we have heard his pastimes, which will come in further in Bhagavatam only. But Ambrish Maharaj, he had a very, very sinful brother, very, very sinful. And being compassionate on him, he wanted to preach him, but with no success. So Ambrish Maharaj, he requested Narada Muni that please preach my brother. I need your help. And eventually Narad Muni agreed. So then Narad Muni goes to the palace of the brother of Ambrish Maharaj, very, very sinful king, his brother was. So as soon as he goes, first as a guest, he is received very nicely. But as soon as Narad Muni starts preaching, the sinful king becomes very agitated and he starts throwing wine bottles and things on Narad Muni and he just says, just get out. And Narad Muni says, just hear one thing, please, just one thing. And he just keeps on throwing things and goes on to just kill Narad Muni. And Narad Muni had to run away to save his life. But before leaving, Narad Muni, he shouted to this sinful king. He says, when you will face death, when you will be in front of Yamraj, just ask him one question. Just ask him one question, that what is the result of having sadhu sangha for a lava matra? What is the value of a moment's association with a pure devotee? And this sinful king just says, just get lost. And Narad Muni goes away. And eventually, when the time comes, when death approaches, this sinful king is presented in front of Yamraj. And Yamraj asks his assistant Chitragupta that, what is the account of this person? Tell me all his details. And when Chitragupta starts explaining, the conclusion comes out that for eternity, this sinful king is going to stay in hell. That much of sins he had done in his life. And Yamraj, he said like, hey, you are going to be in hell for eternity. But Yamraj felt compassion also for the sinful king. And he said, well, I can fulfill just one last request. If you have any, let me know. Because anyways, you are going to just stay here for eternity. So hearing such words from Yamraj, the sinful king starts thinking, and immediately it strikes him down that Narad Muni told him to ask this to Yamraj. And he said, what is the value of a moment's association with a pure devotee? So Yamraj, he thinks and he says, good question, very thoughtful. And he becomes amazed. And he's like, I deal with sinners like you all the time. Even though Yamraj was like a pure devotee, he's a Mahajan, he came as a Vidura and we see how glorious he is. He says that how can we put a value to that? I mean, value to a moment association with a pure devotee. How can we even put a value? And he's like, I don't know. And he says, maybe Lord Brahma, he will know. Let's go to him. So they go to the highest planet of this material world, Brahma Loka. And they ask Lord Brahma the same question, that please help us in knowing the answer to the value of a moment's association with the pure devotee. And Brahma starts thinking and he starts scratching all four of his heads. And he says that it is priceless, but how can we estimate? How can we put a value to it? Brahma is also like, I can't understand it. I don't know. And then Brahma says, like, Lord Shiva is a pure devotee. He will know. Let's go to him. Now, all three of them go to Lord Shiva. And reaching to Lord Shiva, they ask the same question. And Lord Shiva is not able to estimate. He says, it is priceless. It is invaluable. There is no value to it. I don't know what value can we put to it. And I deal with these ghastly creatures all the time. I never thought of putting some value or estimating it. And then they discuss, and all of them, they decide that maybe the Lord only can answer this. Let's go to the Lord himself. Let's go to Vaikuntha. So all four of them now, they go and approach the Lord in Vaikuntha. And they ask the Lord that, dear Lord, this person, he came to Yamraj and asked this question, and we feel it is appropriate for us to ask the value because we don't know what is the value of a moment's association with a pure devotee. And the Lord smiles at all of them and he says, well, you have already brought him here. Let him stay. Let him stay here. I'll take care. You all go. And they all leave. And this sinful king stays there. And immediately, this sinful king realizes the value of moment's association with the pure devotee. He realizes that the value is that one is delivered to the Lord's abode, Vaikuntha, by all means. He realizes that he had just one moment association with Narada Muni and few moment association with all the Mahajans, Brahma, Yamraj, Lord Shiva. And look where he has reached. Being awarded like for eternity is going to be in hell. But just by the moment association, he ended up with the Lord himself. And Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Prabhupada mentions in Bhagavatam purport only that Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva, Nishtara Paiche Keba. Without being a devotee of a devotee, one cannot be released from material entanglement. Therefore, even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he identified himself as Gopi Bhartu Padakamalyor Das Das Anudas. And he instructed us to become not directly servants of Krishna, but servants of the servant of the Krishna. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he also says, we sing every day that Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasado. If one very sincerely serves the spiritual master Krishna, Krishna certainly becomes favorable to such a devotee. Following the instructions of a devotee is more valuable than following the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly. Krishna is even more pleased when we serve his devotees. And in the company of devotees, we can remember the Lord very easily. We can discuss his pastimes, relish the Krishna Katha, and it is so merciful. And I heard in one lecture that similarly, many times, the association of those disciples, the disciples who are faithfully following the instructions of the Guru, the association of those disciples is more valuable than the association of Guru himself. Because sometimes we do have the desire to go closer to the Guru, stay there and serve him directly, but we may fail in pleasing him properly or we may commit offenses. I remember Gaur Kumar Prabhu sharing with me that Guru, Krishna, like deities, they are like fire. Not everyone can go close and handle that fire. Therefore, we should aspire to be the servant of the servants, devotee of the Lord's devotee. And one time, a Mataji, she was serving in Radha Gopinath Temple, Chowpatty, Mumbai, in India. And she was serving in the DT kitchen and she came out And just then only His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he was passing by, and she saw Maharaj and she immediately bowed down to him. She got up and Maharaj asked, "So, aren't you very fortunate because you are cooking for Gopinath?" And she said, "No, no, Maharaj, I am not cooking for Gopinath. I am only assisting a Brahmana Mataji because I am first initiated. I am not Brahmana initiated. So I have just come to assist her in cutting vegetables." And then Maharaj looked at her and said, "Then aren't you even more fortunate?" And Maharaj then went away. But the Mataji, she could not understand what just happened. She got confused and she went to her counselor and inquired that first Maharaj said, "You are fortunate serving Gopinath." And then I said, "No, I am not doing." And then he said, "You are even more fortunate." So her counselor said that because you are being servant of the Lord, that is why you are more fortunate. The moment's association with a pure devotee and being the servant of the servants of Krishna is very, very fortunate. And now coming back to the verses, further the sages, they continue to, they continue speaking and they ask Sutta Goswami that how can someone say enough after relishing this nectar filled pastimes of the Lord that you are narrating? How anyone who is expert in relishing the nectar ever be fully satiated by hearing topics about the Lord? And then the sages called Sutta Goswami as Bhagavad Pradhan, and they call themselves as Sushrushtam. They said that you want to glorify Krishna, and we are eager to hear Krishna, and we are a very good match. Please, please narrate. Please, we want to hear more. And seeing this eagerness of the sages, Sutta Goswami was very pleased. And now Sutta Goswami speaks again. So just to give you some background, Sutta Goswami, he did not take his birth in Brahmana family. He was born in a family of mixed caste or an uncultured law family. But because of higher association like Shri Shukadev Goswami and the sages, the great rishis of Naimisharanya, certainly the disqualification of inferior birth was washed off. And therefore, when Sutta Goswami starts speaking, he expresses his humility. He says that, "Oh God, although we are born in a mixed caste, we are still promoted in birthright simply by serving and following the great who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with such great souls, one can without delay cleanse oneself of all disqualifications resulting from lower births, even by conversing with such great souls." And Lord Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he clearly stated that any man, whatever he may be, whether a Brahmana or Shudra by birth, or a householder or mendicant in order of society, if he is conversant with the science of Krishna, he can be accepted as an Acharya or Guru. So Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he revived this original Vedic system and he elevated Srila Haridas Thakur to the position of Namacharya, or the authority in preaching the glories of holy name of the Lord. Srila Haridas Thakur was born in a low caste family, was born in the family of Mohammedans. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed the power of holy names such that he made Srila Haridas Thakur as Namacharya. Not only that, when Haridas Thakur, he said that I am not going to enter the Jagannath temple, Lord Jagannath temple, because of my lower birth. Mahaprabhu requested him and made sure that he stays near to the temple, and every day Mahaprasad, he made sure that Mahaprasad is taken to Haridas Thakur. And when Haridas Thakur passed away, the Lord took him in his arms and he cried and lamented the passing away of his dear devotee, irrespective of his birth. That is the mercy of the Lord of his devotees and the holy names. And similarly, even more, Lord Chaitanya initiated Dabir Khas and Shakar Malik, serving the Mughal emperors. He initiated these two as the primary acharyas of our movement. And we know them as Srila Sanatan Goswami and Srila Rupa Goswami. So Sri Sutta Goswami says, he expresses his humility that even though he's born in a lower class, the mercy is so much that just by conversing with great souls, the disqualification, the heart is cleansed. And moving further, Sutta Goswami, he speaks, he says that the personality of Godhead, he is unlimited in potency and is called as Ananta, unlimited. And Srila Prabhupada writes in purport that the supreme absolute truth is unlimited. No living being can know about the unlimited by his limited capacity. The pastimes of the Lord in different features can only be estimated partly by the great learned devotees. Factually, only the Lord himself can describe himself. And his learned devotee also can describe him as far as the Lord gives them the power of description. In one of the lecture, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he said, if you think you understand God, you do not understand anything. Not that you understand a little bit, you do not understand anything. But if you understand that I cannot understand God, if you understand that I cannot understand God, then you have begun to understand. So Srila Sutta Goswami, he takes this humble position in describing the unlimited pastimes and glories of the Lord as far as he has realized. He says, O rishis, who are as powerful or as pure as the sun, I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Krishna as far as my knowledge is concerned. As the birds fly in the sky as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. And taking this humble position, glorifying the Lord, and being grateful for the association of devotees, Srila Sutta Goswami, now he starts narrating that the story that how Maharaj Parikshit was cursed by the Brahmana boy. Now he starts speaking further. So till now, what was happening, the stage was being set. The characters were being placed. Dhritarashtra quit home. The Lord ended his pastime on earth. Pandavas retire timely. Parikshit Maharaj is born and he punishes Kali. So the stage was being set, and now the real action is going to start. Now the Bhagavatam is going, the action in the Bhagavatam is going to start, and this brings us to the section 3 of our discussion today, and which is from verses 24 to 50. So just to give you a quick summary, so what will happen now is, now Parikshit Maharaj, being thirsty, being fatigued, he approaches the hut of a sage and he becomes angry for not being received respectfully. So he just put on a dead snake over the shoulder of the sage and he leaves and he goes to his palace. And when the son of this sage, a little Brahmana boy, he comes to know and he feels that his father was humiliated like this, he curses Maharaj Parikshit to die in 7 days. And then when the sage comes out of his meditation, he regrets this, that what his immature son has done, and he starts praying for forgiveness. So let's go in detail. So Maharaj Parikshit, he had 7 days to live. For a simple mistake that he committed, he was cursed to die in 7 days. And this is taking place 5,000 years ago, when Brahmins and yogis had tremendous powers. So today, if someone would come to us and tell us, I curse you to die in 7 days, we will just laugh at them and we'll say, let's see. We are here. Let's see. But at that time, if a great Brahman would curse like this, it is a 100% guarantee what they said would come true, because they had those powers. Even Shringi, who was the little child of Shamika Rishi, he could also do so. So Parikshit Maharaj, the most pious, holy man, a Raja Rishi. So one day, after he goes to forest for hunting, and when he comes back, he becomes very thirsty, incredibly thirsty, just unable to bear it. So much thirst he feels. And he happened to come across the hermitage, the hut of the sage Shamika Rishi, the great sage. And the sage was sitting in samadhi, meditation. And King Parikshit, he wasn't himself. He was in a bewildered state, because otherwise King Parikshit was like amani na man dena. He would respect everyone, especially the sages, the saint, the rishis. But on this day, he said, please give me some water. And the rishi didn't move, because he was in samadhi and he didn't hear him. But this makes Parikshit Maharaj very angry. Parikshit Maharaj, he became angry. And anger, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, when our desires are unfulfilled, we become angry. Krishna says, Dhyayato Vishyan Pumsa, Sangas Teshu Upjayate, Sangat Sanjayate Kama, Kamat Krodho Abhijayate. Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha, Sammohat Smriti Vibhrama, Smriti Bhramshat Buddhi Nasho, Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati. So Krishna explains the whole chronological order of how a person becomes degraded. First, we become attracted to sense objects. From that attraction, attachment comes. And when this attachment is accelerated with the course of time, with the nature, course of nature, it becomes kama, it becomes lust. And when our lust, or when our passionate desires, they are unfulfilled, krodha, we become angry. And the nature of anger is that it causes bewilderment. It causes bewilderment of memory. We forget what is to be done, what is not to be done, what is right, what is wrong. All these things are clouded by the veil of anger. And then we lose our intelligence. We say things, we do things that we don't intend to do at all. And then when our intelligence is lost, we fall down into lamentable, regrettable conditions. So now Parikshit Maharaj, he was a very, very elevated soul. What we have been reading in previous chapters, how elevated, how pure soul, pure devotee he is. And this was below his dignity to become angry at such an offense, that being not received nicely by a sage who was in samadhi. And great souls like Parikshit Maharaj, pure souls like him, They can use these human emotions in the service of the Lord. Hanumanji was as angry as anyone could ever be. When he was jumping from one building to another building with his tail set on fire, he set the entire city of Sri Lanka ablaze. And when he rode upon Ravana, if you think that I have done harm to your city, wait till Ram comes, wait till my Lord comes. Whatever powers I have are only by his grace. So when anger is used in the service of the Lord, when we control anger, then the same anger has very positive powers. But when anger controls us, we become degraded. So Parikshit Maharaj, he was a self-realized soul. He was a pure devotee of the Lord. So how can he become angry and get degraded? This is like bewilderment for us. And Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport and explains it. And we understand this, that this was Yogamaya. This was ordained by the Lord himself in order to teach the world very priceless lessons. Sometimes the Lord uses his very elevated devotees as an example. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was a pure devotee beyond bewilderment. But when he was between the two armies, he saw friends, teachers, relatives all standing there. He became totally bewildered. If he wasn't so totally bewildered, there wouldn't be such an exciting, dynamic setup, such a exciting stage for the Bhagavad Gita to be spoken for all the humanity and for all the time to come. And the Bhagavad Gita is summary study of all the Vedas, and Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear that is the postgraduate study of Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna wanted to set up even more super exciting venue for the Srimad Bhagavatam to be spoken. So Parikshit Maharaj apparently gave into anger. But someone like him, if he gives into anger, what could have he done? He could have taken his sword and cut the yogi's head off. Nobody could have said anything. He could have sent the massive armies. But instead, he just happened to see there was a dead snake. And also, speaking of how he was received, according to custom, the and according to the law of reception in the Vedic codes, in the Vedic principles, they state that even if an enemy comes to your home, that that person should be received with all respects, even the enemy. And when a guest comes to your home, you should put a garland on them. What to speak of a king? And we honor them nicely. Recently, ex-mayor of New York City, he came and visited the Bhakti Center in New York. What an honor. And he was hosted so warmly with a garland and much more. And what to speak if someday the President of United States might visit, or the Prime Minister of India, they visit. And these are just little countries. And they are just, people from these little tiny countries. But King Parikshit was the emperor of the world. And he didn't receive anything. He felt such a cold reception. So when he saw that dead snake with the end of his bow, he picked up the dead snake and put it over the shoulder of the rishi and thought, here, you are not going to garland me, I will garland you. And he left. And when he left, he went to his palace, and then the little son The little son of the Brahmana Shringi, he heard about this. And his pride, even though he was a Brahmana and had great powers, he was proud, he was arrogant, he had false ego. And this story shows us how dangerous any type of powers are, especially yogic, mystical, Brahminical powers, unless we have clean hearts. So Shringi had mystical perfections, but he was arrogant. And he could not tolerate that his father was humiliated in this way. And this gave a chance to the personality of Kali to come into the picture, take hold through the pride of this young, little, immature son of Shamika Rishi. And from there, the entire collapse of Brahmana society begins. And for the rest of the order, the rest of the orders in the society as we see today. So Shringi, out of his pride, just to show his friends, he was playing with small kids. They were very immature and they don't know, just to show his powers to them. And out of his immaturity, he cursed the king to die in 7 days. He said, on the seventh day from today, a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of that dynasty. And he says so harsh words towards Parikshit Maharaj before cursing him out of his pride. And Parikshit Maharaj, he received the news. When he received the news, he did not retaliate. He had already realized that he did wrong. That was not the way he should have acted. He was not able to why he did that. So he didn't. And when he heard that he has been cursed and is now everything is going to end in 7 days, and he had the powers to revoke. He could revoke Lord's mercy and he could just ask for Lord's mercy and just revoke this curse. But he did not do anything, did not retaliate. Rather, he accepted this as God's blessing. He accepted this as Krishna's blessing. And we often hear that Tatenu kampam susumikshamano bhunjana eva atmam kritam vipakam Ridvag vapurvir vidadan namaste jiveta yo mukti padesa daibhak. Lord Brahma has told us that one who even in the most difficult circumstance can see it as the grace of the Lord and accepts it with a grateful heart, that person alone, no one else, is entitled the perfection of liberation. So Parikshit Maharaj, he saw this as an opportunity. And he was young. He was at the peak of his life. He had a beautiful family, a wonderful palace. He had children, everything that anyone wants to become attached to. He had it all. And as soon as he heard about the curse, he understood, I made the mistake. This might not be the proper reaction that I should get, but whatever happens, happens. Now, how can I utilize this situation as an opportunity? Now, how can I focus 100% of all my energy on my spiritual perfection? And within seconds, he gave up his throne to his son, said goodbye to his wife and children, gave up his royal garments, put on a copan, went to the bank of the Ganges to fast till death with one aim, to hear the glories of the Lord. So what we can learn is that we should try our best to be so sincere. Parikshit Maharaj knew for sure he had 7 days. But there is no person on this planet, there is no person in this world who knows for sure that he has even 7 minutes. Padam Padam Yad Vipadam. There is danger at every step. We don't know, even if we have 7 minutes. So Parikshit Maharaj, he's showing us that this is the type of sincerity that is required to make the real spiritual advancement. And we will see that for 7 days, throughout the day, there wasn't a sound with Shukadev Goswami speaking. Everyone was hearing with rapt attention, especially Parikshit Maharaj. And here is the interesting thing. The same Parikshit Maharaj, he got into this situation, into this predicament, because he was thirsty. He was thirsty, and it was just a matter of few hours that he had nothing to drink. And he got angry and disturbed in his mind due to thirst. But for 7 days, he didn't have any food, no water, no sleep, and he felt no fatigue, no thirst, and no hunger. Same Parikshit Maharaj. And Krishna, he says in Bhagavad Gita, Vishyavini vartante niraharasya dehina, rasavarjam raso apiyasya, param drishtva nivartate. Because Parikshit Maharaj was experiencing the higher taste. The nectar of Krishna Katha, the sound of Krishna pastimes, Krishna's teachings was completely satisfying his body, mind, and soul. He was so satisfied that the hunger, thirst, and the rest of his body was not even relevant, because the soul was tasting such an incredible nectar. So therefore, coming back to the story, now what happens? Shringi actually realizes that he has done something wrong. He realizes that. And when he returns to the hermitage of his father, seeing the snake on his father's shoulder, he starts crying loudly. In the purport, Prabhupada mentions that he realized that he did something wrong. And hearing his cry, the sage comes out of his samadhi and he sees the snake on his shoulder. And seeing the snake, he just put it off. He just put it aside insignificantly, not bothered at all. If it was a live snake, it would have been very offensive. But it was just a dead snake. People today, they pay a lot of money to use and put the skin of dead snakes on their shoes, on their handbags, on their clothes, etc. Dead snakes, they are not like harmful. So he just insignificantly, without thinking anything, he just put it off. And then the sage, he hears from his son what happened, why is he crying. And when Shringi explains everything, that the king had been cursed, and the sage realized that what a mistake has been done. The king should never have been condemned. He was the best amongst all human beings. He was a Raj Rishi, and the sage did not congratulate his son. He was not happy at all. Instead, he began to repent, feel sad, and he said, Alas, what a great sinful act is performed by my son. The king has been awarded heavy punishment for an insignificant offense. Oh, my boy, your intelligence is immature, and therefore you have no knowledge that the king, who is best amongst human beings, is as good as the personality of Godhead. Now, what will happen to the society? Because without such a king, everything is going to collapse. And someone like Parikshit Maharaj, who is a pious king, he is highly celebrated. He's a first-class devotee of Krishna. He is a saint amongst royalty. And when such a king is tired, when such a king is fatigued, being stricken with hunger and thirst, he does not at all deserve to be cursed. So this is what the sage was speaking to his son. and he realized what a great mistake, and he starts praying. He starts taking the shelter of the Lord. He prays to Krishna that please forgive my son, please forgive my immature boy who had no intelligence and who committed this great sin of cursing someone like Parikshit Maharaj, who is completely free from all sins and who deserves to be protected. The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. And we see that in this entire story, Parikshit Maharaj, he was a pure devotee. Shamika Rishi, the great sage, he was a yogic mystic. Therefore, both of them were unattached to the accidental incident that was ordained, that was created by the supreme will of Krishna for Srimad Bhagavatam to be manifested. And the playful child Shringi was just an instrument in fulfilling the Lord's will. And in the next chapter, we will see how the plan of the Lord is further executed with the appearance of the great soul, Srila Sukadev Goswami. And this concludes our discussion today on chapter 18. My humble gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, because while reading the purports, it was so easy to understand and very clear, and it was I was loving to read them. And even by hearing lectures from Radhesham Prabhu, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, Sridham Saka Prabhu, and wisdom from Gaur Kumar Prabhu. So my gratitude to them and my gratitude to all of you for your time and patience and for staying till the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal Prabhu. It was nectar, like flowing, and I feel showered with amazing Krishna Katha for the last exactly 1 hour, actually. So thank you so much, Prabhu. I mean, there's so many wonderful points that you mentioned, and I can see that you put in a lot of effort, you took a lot of time, and you gave your 100% in preparing for this class, which was filled with jewels in terms of practical applications. And also, it was very Shastrik. You quoted verses, you gave the right purports, you gave us the right understanding, the right meaning. So thank you so much. I'll just quickly just take a couple of minutes to mention some of the points, and then I'll let devotees also speak a little bit. What was interesting for me is you started the class by saying that the devotee never goes against the will of the Lord, and you ended the class by talking about how the will of the Lord is always fulfilled, like in the case of Shringi being a small instrument. So I was impressed by that. And then the point about Kali Yuga, where bad thoughts, there are no impious credits, but even thinking of good acts, we get pious credits. And this point about the Lord gets arrested by the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in the purport, also really touched my heart, because that's exactly what Srila Bilva Mangal Thakur mentions several times, where you can arrest the Lord by thinking about him all the time. Then, of course, in the next section, section 10 to 23, you compared fire sacrifice with the Bhagavad Katha. I think that was also very significant because in this age, fire sacrifices can only cause more doubts and smoke, and even a small mispronunciation can cause problems. But Bhagavad Katha, we can experience nectar immediately, and there is no hard and fast rule. We can easily open Srimad Bhagavatam and then start experiencing the nectar immediately. And then I really like the story about Ambarish Maharaj's brother. I had never heard this, Prabhu, before. I don't know, where is the source for this?
I can share. I heard it from Sridham Saka Prabhu, and also there is one website, I think Sachinandan Maharaj. So I
Uh-huh.
can share that also. I read
Okay.
there.
That was brilliant, actually, that story. The value of a moment's association with a pure devotee, and how Yamaraj also got bewildered and they went to Brahma, Shiva, and finally he ended up in Vaikuntha. So that was a wonderful story. Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Then, without like at this point, also, I really touched my heart also. Um, so we just have to learn to be a devotee of a devotee. Without having that mode of being a devotee of a devotee, there is very little scope for advancement. You gave the example of that Mataji in the kitchen, and how Maharaj said that she is more fortunate than the actual person who was cooking for Gopinath. And the other thing also, the following the instructions of a devotee, one gets more mercy than following the instructions of the Lord. That again, it has to be really imbibed, because many times we think, okay, we just have to follow the instructions of the Lord and we'll be good. But actually following the instructions of a devotee pleases the Lord more, because you are taking that humble position. Um, I don't want to take too much time, but yeah, every single point about Haridas Thakur, Sutta Goswami, how they were born of lower birth, and how Lord Chaitanya cried when Haridas Thakur passed away is very touching pastime. And then this one of Maharaj, I really liked also. If you think you understand God, you understand nothing. But if you think you don't understand God, then you begin to understand God. Beautiful point. Thank you. And one thing I just wanted to add, so Parikshit Maharaj's anger, right? So this keeps coming up. How could Parikshit Maharaj actually get angry? So in the previous chapter, Shreya Mataji very nicely mentioned that Kali actually resides in gold, right? So what happened is that our acharyas explain that Kali was actually residing in the crown, which was made of gold of Parikshit Maharaj. So through that, it bewildered Parikshit Maharaj and caused him to get angry. So even in this simple pastime, Kali was actually infusing through the mind of Shringi, through the crown of Parikshit Maharaj, and so on. So, but even though that was happening, the Lord has a different plan. Even though Kali wanted to fulfill his desires, the Lord has a different plan of getting the Bhagavatam out for all of us. So both ways. So even though Kali Yuga is actually really bad for us, it is actually really good for us also. So we just have to take it positively. And how you mentioned that anger has positive powers. Similarly, Kali Yuga also has extremely positive powers if you just take it in the right way. So thank you, Prabhu. I'll let other devotees speak. Wonderful, wonderful class. Very, very. I mean, I'm going to listen to it again for sure. So anyone else? So Nitya wants to speak, and then we'll take it from there.
Hare Krishna, Vishal Prabhu.
Krishna Mataji.
Amazing class.
Yeah.
Somehow I expected this from you. It was not surprising. So excellent preparation and delivery. Yeah, I mean, Gautama Prabhu explained everything kind of the point wise. Yes, the things that stuck in my head, or that pastime that I've never heard before. Also, the Ambarish Maharaj's pastime, and also the Radhanath Swami Maharaj's pastime with the devotee Mataji for being more fortunate, for just being a servant of the Lord. I mean, everything was like perfect. I mean, I don't want to reiterate what Gautama Prabhu already said about these points, but the thing that struck me most was were the illustrations. It's really amazing pictures. I have not seen such pictures in the internet. I don't know if we can mention the source for them. I mean, it's really, really wonderful. Just looking at Samik Rishi, and also in every picture, how Kali is peeping in and being an agent of those. It's really hard to get those things. I don't know.
I'll
Yeah.
share the source, Mataji.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, pictures say 1,000 words, more than 1,000 words. So I was really blown away by those illustrations, and especially how you have put the Kali, that person. So I was wondering who that person was, but then I realized that was Kali from the previous. It was beautiful, very beautiful. Yeah, it's definitely worth listening to it again. Definitely mind-blowing lecture. Thank you so much for so much gems of wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Happy to repeat the words.
All Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Vishal Prabhu. Thank you so much for this wonderful class. You elucidated the entire chapter so beautifully. I just was listening with rapt attention the entire time. I had never heard that story of Ambarish Maharaj told that way. That was really excellent. And it just, what stuck out to me this evening was how we may not know what Krishna's plan is, but if we can just remember that it's Krishna's plan, that everything will turn out in the end. And it's fitting because Andrea and I are going through some stuff right now that just came up today, and it's a good reminder about that, to keep Krishna, thinking about him and focusing on the fact that no matter what's happening, he is in control of everything. And I just wanted to share a quote that so Andrea attends a Krishna book reading with Rukmini Walker Prabhu every Wednesday, and she was talking about I don't know the exact topic she was talking about, but Andrea shared a quote with me. She said, Rukmini said, "Be attached to the giver, Krishna, not the gifts. Trust our supreme friend, even if things get taken away."
Wow.
And so that I feel is incredibly appropriate given with what Maharaj Parikshit went through. He, even though he knew everything, literally everything was going to be taken away from him, he focused on Krishna and he wanted to hear about Krishna. And he spent, as you said, the last 7 days of his life listening without interruption. So I think it's very auspicious that you gave this class today, and I heard from Andrea what Rukmini said, and everything just kind of lines up. So thank you for sharing the wisdom that you have learned.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to ask you for the quote again. So be attached.
Yes. I'll put it in the chat if you want.
Okay,
but I'll say it again. Be attached to the giver, Krishna, not the gifts.
Got it.
Trust our supreme friend, even if things get taken away.
Beautiful. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyone else would like to share anything? So Manishika, please go ahead. Oh, sorry. Anybody else wants to say anything?
I want to say.
Karan Prabhu, go ahead.
So yeah, first of all, yeah, wonderful delivery, Prabhu. You are like flawless in your delivery, and you could see like how much preparation you have put into this one session that you are giving, and we could see how absorbed you were in delivering. So I hope to also have such absorption, and yeah, it was like coming from your heart, everything that you were saying. So much lectures that you hear of Radhanath Maharaj that you have absorbed, you can clearly see in the way you are speaking. So thank you so much, Prabhu.
So thank you for mentioning that the point about absorption, Karan Prabhu. And I see that you are also always absorbed, even during the Kirtan today. I could see how absorbed you are. And because you have that quality, you're able to see it in others. And you saw it in Vishal Prabhu. For a person like me who's not absorbed at all, I couldn't see absorption anywhere. So thank you for sharing that point, Karan Prabhu.
You are seeing it in everybody, bro. You have most absorption.
So thank you, Karan Prabhu. And yeah, Sindhu Kanya Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This was a very nice lecture. It was kind of like story time for me, but at the same time, you were hitting such deep philosophical concepts. And what I really picked up from this lecture was up until now, I felt like I didn't really understand why Parikshit Maharaj put the snake around the Rishi's neck. And I was like, he's such a learned king, why would he do that? It just seems so, spontaneously whimsical. And then the way you explain, like, how when a respectable person shows up, he expects some respect. And because of like that comparison that you made, and you explained it so nicely, I finally understood, and I felt like I wasn't blaming Parikshit Maharaj anymore. I completely understood his side, that he wasn't actually wrong. He was in such an elevated position that in that position you're bound to feel that you need that kind of respect. The fact that he acted in the mode of anger is what led to the following sequence of events. But I really understood his perspective, so thank you for giving that example and making it so easy to understand.
Thank you for attending, Mataji.
Very well.
Anyone else would like to speak? Family members? Nupur? Or anyone else?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for giving such a great class. And yes, Gaurakumar Prabhu, the points that you have quoted, the same points I've also quoted. So yes, it was an amazing class. And and what else I could say? So yes, again, Prabhuji, uh, the point that you quoted, that uh, Kali was uh, present in Parikshit Maharaj's crown. So that point actually made the whole sense, that okay, I'm not able to picturize the whole thing, but see, I have understood the whole scenario. And the question that one Mataji asked, I'm not able to see her right now. Yes, Sindhu Kanya Mataji. So her question was that she wasn't able to understand why Parikshit Maharaj um, kept the dead snake on that sage's neck. So yes, I had that question in my mind, and you answered that question, Proji, that Kali was there in Parikshit Maharaj's crown. So yes, that made the whole sense actually. So yes, thank you so much, Proji, for the amazing class.
Thank you, Manishika.
Thank you, Manishika. That was very nice points that you made. And yeah, thank you for attending and being part of our little group here. But I can't let Vishal Prabhu go without asking a question. So the question I have is that, of course, you focused a lot about the value of moments association with the pure devotee, and you gave the examples and several instances. But we see on a practical level, there are many people who do get personal association, who do converse with pure devotees on this planet, but still they fall away. But still they can move away from Krishna consciousness, or we have seen so many instances like that. And even in Srila Prabhupada, there are so many people who got a very close association of Srila Prabhupada, but still we see that once Prabhupada left the planet, they also kind of moved away. So how do we understand this in a practical sense? Because Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy, but then why is that not being applied in many instances that we have seen?
I would say good question. Let's go to Lord Brahma.
You must try to attempt to answer the question.
I don't know. for what comes to my mind immediately is we can't see it, because I remember you gave the example of Hayagriva Prabhu. Even being so dear to Prabhupada, he was not able to be consistent in with his devotional practice. But in the end, when he was away and he was suffering with cancer, he came back. I mean, he realized, and Prabhupada came back to take him. So I am remembering that example, and I feel that for some time being, for some like last purification or something might be there that they just need to go through. But ultimately, the Prabhupada or the Guru, they definitely comes, and that more than a moment association, I mean, Krishna sees it. That's what my understanding.
Wonderful. Anyone else? So Paul Prabhu, what do you think?
About your question?
Yes.
I think that what Vishal Prabhu said is very astute, that we may not see what happens in the final moments of those people's lives, just like we in the material world weren't able to, even if we were alive at the time, able to see what happened to Ambarish Maharaj. Also, in addition, people, while those things may be counted for us rather than against us, we still in this life may not be able to take advantage of it. And perhaps while it's still in our ledger, it may take another birth for us to actually be able to cash in on it.
Wonderful. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful point. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. I just want to my understanding, I'll just share a little bit. So one thing is, of course, the association of a pure soul is very precious, and it should be taken like a diamond. So the content of the association is important, but as Chaitanya Charan Prabhu always says, our intent should also be very pure. So that's when the complete connection happens. So we must be eager for that association, we must be enthusiastic for that association, and we must be really longing for that association. Like so many devotees come to mind, like Shabari, for example. Like she was longing for the association of Lord Ram. So when she got the associations, immediately she was delivered. So similarly, if we have that longing, if we have that eagerness, if we cultivate that by constant hearing, and then when that association comes in, then it really goes deep into our heart. So, when these verses were quoted, the devotees had that longing, that enthusiasm, without any other motive. There was no other motive also. So that was what caused immediate benefit for all of them. So that's my understanding, but I could be wrong also. But I just wanted to share that. So thank you all so much. I'll just end with some announcements. So now it's Swami season in New York, New Jersey. So this Friday, we are going to have His Grace Gauranga Prabhu on Saturday. His Grace Gauranga Prabhu from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in ISKCON of New Jersey in Tobacco. And then on Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Bhakti Center in Manhattan. And then Sunday evening from 6 to 8:30 p.m. at ISKCON of CNJ in Plainfield, New Jersey. And very soon, also we will be getting Chaitanya Charan Prabhu here on August 15th, and Braj Vihari Prabhu in September, and several other, Devamrit Swami is also coming here. So several, Amarendra Prabhu also is going to be here in Bhakti Center. So several wonderful souls are coming. Almost every Sunday, there are going to be amazing programs at the Bhakti Center. So please, those of you who are in this area, please make good use of this Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Let's be eager, let's be enthusiastic, and let's go to the temple to take association of these wonderful souls. So on that note, I can stop here, and thank you, Vishal Prabhu. Just one last thing. So next week, we have a very, very special speaker, His Grace Sri Gauracharan Prabhu from GEV Mumbai, and he's a pujari, he's a manager, he's a very enthusiastic speaker, and I've known him since 2003, 2004. So very, very close friend of mine. So he'll be concluding this whole series of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, after which we will start Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we will be doing, I will send you some details about it, but we will start that series after that. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Vishal Prabhu, once again. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. His Grace Vishal Prabhu ki jai. Hari Bol.
Jai Haribo.
Hare Krishna.